all feel like we pretty much know Facebook's game. They show us some ads, and we get to socialize for free. I don't tend to really give Facebook very much information about me. So I tend to get ads for the average 29-year-old woman. I get washing powder, I get like shampoo, makeup, dresses, clothes, more dresses, more clothes, and every now and again I get a pregnancy test. But what happens when Facebook gets a little bit more information? So last summer, my mum died. And we didn't want to tell anyone about it on Facebook, because you don't want anyone to find out that kind of thing from something like a Facebook post. So we didn't post anything. We rang people. We told people in the right way. The day after, Facebook suggested I might be interested in this: Goodwill Family Funeral Directors. Surely just a coincidence. So I was a bit cross about this, and I went to my brothers and sisters on our group chat and I said, have any of you posted about this on Facebook? Because, you know, we said we weren't going to do that. Not me, said Jess. Might just be a strange coincidence. Yeah, it could be that. Too close a coincidence. My sister, she told her friend via private message that our mother had died. So my sister had used the words mum and died in a Facebook message to her friend Maddie. And then Facebook made the connection that I'm her sister. They have that information, I gave it to them. Figures out, hey, she might want a funeral director, and sticks that in my feed. It just goes to show how much Facebook knows and how much complexity it can grasp, despite my not telling it anything. Facebook isn't the only place this happens, by a long shot. So the other day I went to the Spotify website to download Spotify. This is in Swedish. And I'm using Firefox, and I'm using their Lightbeam extension. And Lightbeam is a really cool Firefox add-on that shows you who is tracking you via third-party scripts. You can find it on Mozilla's site. And Lightbeam shows me that Spotify, on this side it's a bit blurry, sends my data to 25 sites. So let's have a bit of a closer look at where these scripts are coming from. There's probably a few that are familiar to you as a developer. Google Analytics, we know that's analytics. Twitter and Facebook, that's probably some kind of sharing social button that's on a site. Also, possibly not. That leaves 21 slightly more mysterious scripts. So let's have a closer look at one of these. What about udserver.org? I love it when people take vowels out, it makes it easy to pronounce. So if I go to that URL, I get this. An opt-out page for Trade Desk. You can see that they tried really hard on this page. That's why it's got CSS and everything. And you can see that even though it's udserver.org, it's the Trade Desk. So I go to the Trade Desk website. I wonder what this site is. The Trade Desk is apparently true buying power and omni-channel buying capabilities and industry-leading tech. No idea what that means. Now, I've been doing quite a lot of research into trackers recently, and so I have a handy hint. If you want to know what a site actually does, top tip, check the privacy policy. So I go on, find that, get into that. So during a week of researching trackers, I found that most tracking companies whose primary business is based around getting your data, they're most straightforward about their business in their privacy policy. It's something to do with compliance or transparency. And so if I go down on the Trade Desk one, I can find out that the Trade Desk technology allows our clients to buy ad space on websites for online advertising and allows for the use of proprietary and third-party data in the purchase of that media. What else can we learn from their policy? Our technology collects non-personally identifiable information, non-PII, I'll come back to that later, that may include, but is not limited to, your IP host address, the date and time of the ad request, pages viewed, browser type, the referring URL, internet service provider, and your computer operating system, as well as how you interact with a web page or ad. We may also collect non-personally identifiable information such as age, gender, income, education, interests, and the usage activity from other clients or other third parties. We may also collect analogous non-personally identifiable information from mobile platforms, which may include, I can't read that quickly, I'll be here forever, all of that stuff. That's a lot of your information going into the cloud. But did you notice there the caveats? The non-personally identifiable information. So privacy policies are full of this. This idea that we're going to collect all of this stuff about you, but it doesn't matter because we can't tell it's you. So your IP host address, your age, your gender, your income, your education, your interests, and your usage activity. I'm just going to take a few of these. So I take my IP address when I was making this slide from where I work in Malmö in Sweden. And that can pinpoint exactly where I am about 25% of the time in my average week, my life at the moment. Right there. By that roundabout. And then, if you add in my age, my gender, some of my education, which is all very easily available that I've put on Facebook, or you can find it elsewhere, how many 29-year-old women who studied in Somerset in the UK are now working in this building in Malmö? 800 miles away. It's definitely this idiot. But they don't share it. It's non-personally identifiable information, they say. So this guy, very smart, Bruce Schneier, he's a cryptographer, a computer security and privacy expert. And what he says is, it only takes a small named database for someone to pry the anonymity of a much larger anonymous database. So with more than one data set, the right algorithm, nearly any data set can be de-anonymized very, very easily, and is. An example of these databases could be Sweden has hitta.se, which is their population database, where it will have my name, my address, where I come from, a lot of my things I buy, it's connected to credit cards, bank accounts, and all of that. Mostly just the name and the address of the thing that's visible. Still connects it. Or the UK's electoral roll. So the information that the government keeps to know where people are to vote. I think most countries have a very similar thing. Both of these are publicly available. Both of these can very easily be used to de-anonymize anything about me. So they know all this stuff. So many of these third parties can work out a huge amount about me and about my habits. But surely they don't know me as a person. Well, apparently Facebook knows me better than members of my own family. According to psychologists and a computer scientist from the University of Cambridge and from Stanford, computer-based personality judgments are actually more accurate than those made by humans. The team found that their software was more able to predict a study participant's personality more accurately than a work colleague, just by analyzing 10 of their likes. Just 10. Inputting 70 of their likes allowed it to obtain a truer picture of someone's character than a friend or a roommate, whilst 150 likes outperformed a parent, sibling, or partners. This is one fancy graph they did. It took 300 likes before the program was able to judge character better than a spouse. I'm pretty sure most people here have liked more than 300 things. And now, with the introduction of Facebook reactions, that's even more they know about you. And you think, Laura, you're being a bit paranoid. Me and the Belgian police. Police in Belgium are now warning people against using Facebook reactions on their official website. Belgian police now say that the site, Facebook, is using them as a way of collecting information about people and deciding how best to advertise to them. As such, it has warned people that they should avoid using the buttons, the reactions, if they want to preserve their privacy. Direct quote from the police. By limiting the number of icons to 6, Facebook is counting on you to express your thoughts more easily so that the algorithms that run in the background are more effective. The post continues, by mouse clicks, you can let them know what makes you happy or angry or sad. How many things have you liked on Facebook? Do you use these other reactions too? And this is why data brokers exist. Corporations whose sole purpose is to get information about you, collect it together, and make it more saleable. So LexisNexis, stylish name, helps uncover the information that commercial organizations, government agencies, and nonprofits need to get a complete picture of individuals, businesses, and assets. But only Axiom, they're different. They connect people across channels, time, and even name change at scale by linking their vast repository of offline data to the online environment. It's big money business. Possibilities, completely endless. For example, last year, Facebook was granted a patent. When an individual applies for a loan, the lender examines the credit ratings of the members of the individual social network who are connected to the individual through authorized nodes. If the average credit rating of these members is at least a minimum credit score, the lender continues to process the loan application. Otherwise, the loan application is rejected. Yeah, that means they want to approve loans based on how poor your friends are on Facebook. Not even a lie, a real thing. Would that make you think about your friends in a different light? What about if a friend unfriends you because they think you're too poor? They haven't used it yet, that I'm aware of. It's for these kinds of reasons that people have started using ad blockers and other tracker blockers, mostly ad blockers. But ads aren't the problem. The trackers are the problem. The third-party scripts are the problem. So at Indy, where I work, we've been doing a little research, and we found some of the most commonly used third-party scripts on the web. So these are of about 10,000 sites we looked at. These are the most popular. And 78.5% of them from the top 10,000 sites come from Google, all of those. And that is why I did not want to fill out the Google form with my speaker meal preferences. That much. And all of these sites will set third-party cookies or tracking pixels. Cookies aren't inherently bad. Cookies can be very useful. We can use them for storing a login on a site or preserving a language so you know when you come back that you want it in your native language. But we don't want or need those bad cookies, the particularly third-party ones. They're just sitting there, following us around and spying on everything we do. A lot of them, you can do various things with your browser if you want to say only allow cookies from this site. Try doing that. I tried doing that with Safari and lasted about 2 days before I had loads of sites coming up and saying to me, no, we can't give this to you unless you allow us to use third-party cookies. No real reason behind it. So people recognizing this problem started using ad blockers to block ads and third-party scripts, namely, mostly, to block ads. People don't like ads. There's things like AdBlock Plus, that strange one from Firefox, I can't remember the name of it, AdBlock and Ghostery. But let me say it again. Ads are not the problem. Trackers are the problem. There are some really horrifying ads and clickbait out there. I don't want to look at that very much. I don't want to be distracted by that. But that's not necessarily what these ad blockers are doing. So AdBlock Plus, they have a whitelist called acceptable ads. They are just ads and tracking scripts that they allow through if you're using AdBlock Plus. I think you can opt in and out, but by default they allow them through. Acceptable ads, what are they defined by? Well, largely under the criteria that if they're too dominant and too annoying, then they won't let them through. But annoying ads aren't the problem. Trackers are the problem. And there's nothing in this criteria for acceptable ads about the ads tracking you. What's worse than that is that large companies are paying for their ads to be shown, including Google ads. And we know how prolific Google is, the amount of trackers that they're going around. We know how wide their reach is. And ads are kind of getting beat up on because ad networks don't actually have to be bad. Most of them are, but they don't have to be. This is the deck. It's an ad network, a small one, that targets its audience by the sites it's on. So it mostly goes out to kind of web and creative professionals. You might have seen it if you like to go on a list apart. And they're fine with knowing nothing. This is their privacy policy. And as it says there, we don't track our readers in any way or allow any other behind-the-scenes shenanigans. We just serve useful, relevant ads in a simple, unobtrusive way to support independent publishers. They don't need all that data that the other ones had. So the deck shows static ads to a niche audience, but what about behavioral ads? Because that's what everyone wants to add to their site. They want relevant advertising. What do we do about that? So all behavioral ads track you. That's how they work. If you visit a site from some cloud somewhere, a tracking script comes in and attaches itself to your browser. Then, as you continue to browse the web, the tracking script sends back information about your activity to the mothership. There we go. Here in the mothership, the data gets stored and processed so they can work out what ads are relevant based on your browsing information. And that determines the ads and all the other stuff that gets shown on the page. Relevant, behavioral. But it doesn't actually have to be this way. What if you download an extension or something similar to that to your browser? And it finds out information about you as you browse, but that information stays inside your device. It doesn't go outside of that. And instead of phoning home to the mothership sends its ads to your device, to that extension. And with those ads comes that algorithm of these are the kind of people we want to look at our ads, and decides what's relevant to your information on your computer, and helps it show the relevant ads. So these things do exist. None of your personal information has left your device. So this is a decentralized solution that is called Zero Personally Identifiable Information. Probably needs a catchier name. And it's a framework for showing personalized ads in apps. And Flatter's browser extension that allows you to share a monthly pool of tips with your favorite sites. But who's going to use your decentralized systems when your personal information is far more lucrative? I'm going to have to just move my microphone for a second so I don't deafen you all. That's better. And then there's the question of the third-party tracking scripts you will happily put on your site, even if you don't like ads, like analytics. So every time you add analytics to your page, you are sending data back somewhere. Remember that stat from before? 64.1% of the top 10,000 sites are using Google Analytics. They're free. It's easy. But is it ethical or necessary to track visitors on our site? I don't necessarily have the solutions to this, by the way, but I want to discuss the problem with you. First of all, I must explain. I'm a designer, and that's why my talk is called Ethical Design. But I'm also at a developer conference. And a couple of people have mentioned to me about me being the designer, and so I wanted to clear it up. I am actually a developer as well, mostly front-end stuff. And I do that as part of my design work. When we build the products that we build, whether they're a web app, something that's just a website, something that's just an app, a bit of everything. Some of the team do programming, some of them write markup and other development tasks. But all of the team together makes the decisions about how to solve the problems, how the thing actually works, how it's all done. That's design. Everyone is doing the design. You need a cohesive vision for your product when you're creating it. You need lots of people following one path. That's design. Yesterday, John, when I said this to him, described it maybe as being something a bit like an architect. And yeah, I think that as well as a bit of coding, I do graphic design too. I do logos, I do other branding, I do color palettes, I do layout, I do typography. This is part of me being a designer, but it's not everything. So when I'm talking about design, I'm talking about the everything. The every decision we make when we're building things, which becomes very relevant when I introduce to you the Ethical Design Manifesto. So thinking about the analytics problem, and thinking about all of these problems, the tracking scripts, all of the other horrible stuff that seems to be going on the web, we thought we needed a manifesto for the things we use every day, the things we make other people use every day as well. The foundation of a product needs to be decentralized, private, open, interoperable, accessible, secure, and sustainable. It is quite a list. And I'm going to go into each element in detail. But all of these things, is what's missing from a lot of technology nowadays. And these are things that respect human rights. These are all things that we have got laws and regulations to protect. These are things that technology tends to ignore. This is a really strong foundation. What's on the rest of the pyramid? So decentralization. This is something we talk about a lot as developers as being a good thing because we don't like to rely on centralized systems. It's why we don't hotlink all our images and our scripts from other sites. And nobody gets any work done when GitHub's down. We love centralized systems. We understand that if it's not on our computers or servers, that it's not under our control. But we're happy to give corporations control of all of our data. Why is that? And control over data means power. When the Snowden revelations came out, people were rightly outraged at how much information our governments had on us. But not that many people were annoyed at the corporations who were collecting the information and handing it over to the governments. As Bruce Schneier, who we heard from earlier, said, The NSA woke up and said, corporations are spying on the internet. Let's get ourselves a copy. We need to build products that are private. Privacy can come as a result of decentralization. If your data is only yours and it's only on your device, then it's private. So what are we looking at when we talk about decentralization and analytics? Analytics more often have a one whopping great centralized element, the cloud service, that provides the analytics. Like Google Analytics, like Go Squared, like Gauges. If any of them go down when you're using them, you get no data, and all your data belong to them. How do we decentralize analytics? We can host it on our own site or server, so we're not using these ones. So Piwik is an analytics package that allows you to self-host your analytics. And that way, you become the trusted party looking after everyone's data. Not sure that necessarily is the position I want to be in. We need to build open products. We know that free and open means that anyone with sufficient technical knowledge can take the code from some software and make their own version for free. And this means you can trust a product. Because if one version goes in a direction that you don't like, you can use a different version, you can use an earlier version, you can use a forked version. And as developers, we're really in the position to do this because more so than the average person using a computer, we understand this, we understand free and open. Most of the time we can look at something and see how it works. So when I talk about open analytics, we have choices there as well. We have Piwik, again, and open web analytics, that's another option, and there are more. By their nature, open analytics tend to be self-hosted solutions, so they're also decentralized. We need to build products that are interoperable. Have you ever had a phone where you entered all the contacts? It's taken ages and ages to do it, and then you get a new phone and you have to enter all your contacts in all over again. It's a really frustrating experience. But using a SIM card to transfer the contacts across makes it so much easier because SIM cards are interoperable. That was kind of a cheesy little example I did for a low-tech audience, but I think that for people like you, walled gardens is probably a better way of putting it. Why is it such a nightmare switching from an Android device to an Apple device? Because they're not interoperable on purpose. And so a key element when we're looking at analytics and interoperability is being able to get your data out of a service in a meaningful way, not just some horrible dump of something you can't interpret. So for analytics, if you want to switch provider, maybe you'll want to import all your historical data from one to the other. So if something's interoperable, you'll be able to do that easily. We need to build products that are accessible. Because accessibility is so important. Making something available to as many people as possible. It's about diversity. It's about cost. It's about catering to a variety of needs that aren't necessarily your own. I'm very big on accessibility, and if anyone wants to talk about that, you can find me later. Let's face it, most of the things that we have on the web aren't accessible one way or the other. So when I'm saying look at accessibility and analytics, we may as well say let's look at accessibility and anything at all. We need to never stop looking for the ways to make our work more accessible. We need to build products that are secure. In the age of HTTPS everything, that's becoming less of a problem. We're more clued up about security. The problem is that we also confuse security and privacy. Like when Google encrypted email and said, yay, all our stuff is now safe from hackers. It's not safe from Google, though. Security is very important when it comes to analytics. If you're going to be storing data about people, which in its nature is very valuable, you need to know that no one else can get hold of that data and mishandle it. We need to build products that are environmentally and economically sustainable. Sustainability means you know it's worth putting your time into something and it's not going to disappear tomorrow with all of your information and hard work down the drain. One of the key elements to sustainability, particularly in the current market, is that a product has long-term viable business model that doesn't rely on selling your data. That means that if a startup has been given a huge amount of venture capital without having any kind of business model, chances are they're not sustainable. Chances are they're going to sell your data. Chances are they're also a bunch of white, able-bodied guys. And on top of that, the next important layer, I'm finally taking you to the next layer, is that our product is functional, convenient, and reliable. This is probably the base level that most of us aim for today. It actually does a thing. It does that thing in a way that doesn't get in your way, and it does that thing reliably, again and again. And making products that are functional, convenient, and reliable respects human effort. And then we can layer the delight on top. We can make our things enjoyable to use because that respects human experience. Delightful isn't just fun and fluffy stuff. It's a genuinely great experience because it's built upon the strong foundation of human rights and human effort. It respects those things. This is an example of just Basecamp 3. If you look back in the schedule and you haven't got any old stuff, it shows you a cute little marshmallow. Little Basecamp toasting it on the fire. But as Sarah Waktabecha says, she wrote a fabulous article a couple of months ago, we need to quit painting a thin layer of cuteness over fundamentally broken interfaces, because we do that a huge amount too. And so we call this the 3 R's of ethical design, and this is our manifesto. However, most modern products don't respect our human rights, and they're not decentralized, private, open, interoperable, accessible, secure, or sustainable. And when they're built like that, they don't respect the human rights. They're built on the backs of the humans that use them. These are, I hate to say it, often Silicon Valley products. They might respect your human experience, they might make stuff that's really fun and great to use, but they don't actually respect your human rights. They take advantage of their users. They don't give them privacy or security or interoperability or open technologies. Very rarely are their products accessible or sustainable. These are the disruptors, as they like to call themselves. Why they think that's a positive word, I do not know. They call themselves this because they disrupt a market. They take down existing sustainable businesses and they kill them off. They monopolize and they dump, and we need to disrupt their disruption. So back to my analytics example quickly. Do we really need analytics? I mean, if people are starting to use ad blockers everywhere, similar technology to that, how accurate are our analytics anymore? And if we're using analytics, if we really choose to keep using them, are we analyzing more data than we actually need? What do we need to know? When are we just violating the privacy of the people that visit our site? It's something I've been asking myself recently. Go on my site, I've got analytics. Not Google Analytics, though. We need to keep asking ourselves these questions. I've been picking on analytics, but it applies to so many areas. We are, as developers, the gatekeepers of the web. We don't have to add third-party stuff if we don't want to. No one's holding a gun to your head, and it's starting to get out of hand. I have some people come up to me and go, oh, well, if you don't like what Google, Facebook, other corporations are doing, you don't have to use their services. Nope. Social networks are part of our society now. You might like that, you might not, it's a fact of life. Email services, booking services, e-commerce services, these are our new everyday things. We really have to make an effort to not take part in this anymore. We deserve to be able to take part in society and use everyday things without our privacy being compromised. But what if I decide that I do trust these corporations with my data? You shouldn't have to trust them. Google is not your lover. And I can tell you, if you decide to break up with Facebook, it is much easier to get your stuff back from someone you're actually in a relationship with. If your product fits in with the Ethical Design Manifesto, you don't need to trust it. You own your own data, and you can easily go elsewhere if you're no longer satisfied. Not worrying about your data is privilege. If you don't have to worry about corporations or governments getting hold of your personal information, that's privilege, and you're probably mistaken as well. Because what if you're in a country where your sexual preference is illegal? What if you're in a country where your religious beliefs could get you killed? Or you need a loan and your friends are considered too poor? Or if you need medical treatment, but your partying habits that are clearly evident on this, that, and the other social networks show that you're a bit too high risk. And we're not just making these decisions for ourselves. If you use Gmail, you are swapping free email for the data of everyone you exchange emails with. If you support your business with dodgy ad network, then you are making that decision for all of the visitors of your site. It's invisible, it's opt-in by default. That's not fair. As developers, we need to make wise decisions on behalf of our visitors. We can be the gatekeepers of the third-party scripts. But if you're fighting a battle with the top of your organization, there might be something wrong with your business model. An organization that makes money by tracking people, whether they're doing it themselves or getting something in exchange for adding scripts to their site, is not going to want to change. They might even find it impossible to change. And we need to be careful that an organization, if it does appear to change, that it's not just being superficial. They're not just misdirecting us, telling us something is better when it's just bad in a different way. I won't be much longer, just a couple of minutes. So when WhatsApp switched on end-to-end encryption for hundreds of millions of users, and everyone was like, yeah, we can all use WhatsApp and we're fine now. As Rick Falkvench said on his blog, would Facebook really allow WhatsApp to throw away the business value in a 19 billion acquisition? Of course it wouldn't. This demonstrates that the Snoop value was in the metadata all along. The knowledge of who talks to whom, when, how, and how often, not in the actual words communicated. And you think, well, this is just the thoughts of some pirate guy. If you watch A Good American, it's a new documentary, it's wonderful, about Bill Binney, who was a whistleblower on the FBI after 9/11, because he built a surveillance system that could have prevented 9/11 by looking at the metadata. And the FBI didn't use it. So he believes in metadata. Because otherwise, surveilling people is like looking for a needle in a haystack. So the people behind trackers are starting to get a little defensive. 3 Phone Network is partnering with Shine, an ad blocker, to block ads on your internet service provider level. So these people are complaining about it, as they would. They're marketing people. But they say this: the web as it is today exists because of an implicit understanding that ads pay for the content consumers love and therefore need to be seen. No, not true. I don't know why they decided this. There are plenty of other business models on the web. That's not the only one. Ads are not the problem. Trackers are the problem. Corporations need to stop treating us like we're greedy lab rats, saying, please don't experiment on us. As developers, we need to use our powers for good. If we have those skills, we can actually examine and critique these trackers that we're finding, these scripts we're putting on our sites. We could question and challenge the unethical practices. We need to be able to see past the PR, and we also need to support alternatives. We need to be able to give ourselves the choice to change and to go do something else and to use something else. We don't want to end up in a world where we can only use Facebook, we can only use Google. When we're writing our code, we need to remember that code is not neutral, that the products we build have an impact on people's lives, and we are responsible for what we bring into the world that way. Let's have a positive impact on the world. Let's try to build products that make the web better. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know there's no time for questions, but if anyone wants to come talk to me afterwards, I'll be around later.
We can take 2.
Are you sure I haven't overrun too much? Okay.
My mic is not working.
Okay. Hi. I loved your presentation, by the way. But it strikes me as a bit naive because if you go back to a pyramid, you said the foundation is it has to be decentralized, it has to be open, secure, and then above that it's got to be convenient. What was the other things you said?
It's got to be. I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah, that'd be better.
That's much easier than remembering all the words I wrote.
Well, functional, convenient, and reliable. That's the problem is that the basis of the pyramid is directly conflicting with the layer above. So if you tell somebody that something has to be convenient, then it cannot be secure. Well, mostly. So the fundamental problem is that users choose convenience over security. Like if you tell them you can have messaging that will not keep metadata, but you have to run your own server, they'll be like, no, fuck that, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So how do you solve this problem?
We build messaging that doesn't require you to run your own server. So funnily enough, that's something that my organization has been working on. We have an app called Heartbeat. And we are building it so that when you sign up, it gets you your own server. You get to choose where or whatever, but it does it all for you. It deploys it all for you. You have your own space.
Right.
And then if you have these skills, you can manage it.
But that's a specific example. I mean, more like for the conflicting incentives of one versus the other. I work for a company that does secure communications and private communications, and the lack of tracking and logging is actually deleterious to making a product better, because you don't know what users use. You don't know, like when the bug comes in, you don't know what the user did before because we have no tracking. So how do you reconcile making a better product with making it secure? Because your competitor products work and yours doesn't as well, but it's more secure. So how do you tell users you should pick the one that doesn't work as well because it's more secure? That's the fundamental question, I think. Yeah,
and we need to try to work as hard as we can to not use those things as a problem, but try to use them to improve it. I think that some tracking in some isolated situations might work, but it's what you do and where you go with that information, whether you track what you need to in order to be able to debug something, or whether you're tracking everything because, well, you can just throw another script on there and you've got everything.
Right, but that's a sliding scale. We'll talk about this more later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's talk about it later. One last question. Ran, Lola, Ran.
One. Excellent presentation. I'd like to ask you if you know there is the US law and the European law. And the European law is a bit more strict, and it's a new law enforced that I think they are moving towards your presentation. And
yes.
How do you find this movement from European Union? Because many people say that it's useless, and even if you won't get tracked, the products will not work.
Part of yeah. And if you use a blocker, like some kind of blocking script, you will find now that if you use a lot of websites, they don't work. And you can't actually, the page won't load, or when it loads, you can't click on anything because they've got JavaScript on every single link. I think that what the EU are doing is really good. They actually are they have regulation in place, but what it needs is for people to test that regulation, to test them, to make sure they're actually following up on it, which is why it's good that we're in Europe, because the US care less about this kind of stuff, but it's about jurisdiction as well. So because we have jurisdictional laws, it means that if a website is based in the US, the laws are applied by that instead. And the good thing about the EU, even an example, I know a guy, Alexander Hampf, and he is now suing the companies like Wired, who when you go on their site with an ad blocker, they tell you to unblock them. It's actually illegal by EU law to detect the blocking and block your content from them. And so he is now successfully, hopefully, going to sue them. And hopefully that will set a precedent that sites will stop doing that, because no one wants to see those stupid sanctimonious messages. They're all lies anyway.
Thank you very much.